Everyone says that I am Malcolm's first love. After studying abroad for 7 years, my relationship with Malcolm remained the same. For my sake, he rejected all the flattery and advances from women around him. On our wedding day, Malcolm's young assistant drove into my wedding car. She tightly clutched a ring in her hand and had tears in her eyes. "I'm sorry, Mr. Malcolm. I just came to wish you happiness." Without hesitation, Malcolm canceled the wedding and rushed to the hospital with her in his arms. In my last glance before losing consciousness, looking at Malcolm's resolute back, I finally realized that all these years of our relationship had been nothing but a joke. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. Under the bright operating room lights, I seemed to hear someone speaking beside my ear. "Mr. Malcolm, both Miss Vanessa and Miss Sharon need blood transfusions. Now the hospital's blood bank has an insufficient supply. Do you think we should give the blood to Miss Vanessa first or to Miss Sharon first?" Malcolm's voice was without hesitation. "Give it to Sharon first. Sharon is carrying my child. She absolutely cannot have anything happen to her." The doctor tried to persuade him again. "Mr. Malcolm, judging from the current condition, Ms. Vanessa is in a more serious situation. If she doesn't receive a blood transfusion soon, she might lose her life. We have already contacted other blood banks to send more blood, and it will be available for Miss Sharon soon." Malcolm's voice was cold and stern with anger. "Don't you understand? Give the blood to Sharon first. I will never allow anything to happen to Sharon. As for Vanessa," he let out a soft sigh. "If Vanessa really has an accident, I will take care of her for the rest of her life." A hand gently stroked my face, and Malcolm's voice was filled with helplessness. "I already feel sorry for Sharon that I can't marry her. I can't let her get hurt again. Vanessa, you will understand me, right?" After hearing their conversation, I felt as if my heart was being tightly gripped by someone, forcefully pulling me down and tearing it in pain. A tear silently slid down, and my consciousness sank into the darkness. When I woke up again, Malcolm was lying beside my bed. He was still tightly holding my hand, as if he had been by my side for a long time. I didn't know how long I had been in a coma. Malcolm's clothes were wrinkled, and there was a hint of stubble on his chin. He looked extremely haggard. I moved my fingers, and Malcolm suddenly woke up. When he saw me, his red-rimmed eyes lit up. "Vanessa, you're awake." He reached out his hand and tremblingly stroked my hair. His voice was a bit hoarse. "I thought I would never see you again." He seemed to love me deeply now. If I hadn't heard his conversation with the doctor, I would definitely have been moved by him. But now, I couldn't say a single word. Malcolm was as considerate and meticulous to me as ever, even though I hadn't said a single word to him since I woke up. He called the doctor to examine me, wrote down the doctor's instructions word by word, fed me, fetched water to wipe my body, and was busy around me without complaining even once. The nursing auntie sighed beside me. "You're so lucky, girl. When you were in a coma, he stayed by your side and refused to sleep." Remembering the words I heard before losing consciousness, I sneered and tugged at the corner of my mouth. Does Malcolm really love me? But how can a person's heart be divided into two parts and equally given to two people? Looking at the invitation letter in my email, I didn't hesitate anymore. I replied to the sender and then booked a plane ticket to country H. Back then, for Malcolm's sake, I refused my tutor's persuasion to stay and resolutely returned to my home country. Now that Malcolm has found a new love, it's time for me to leave. I have never met Sharon, but this is not the first time I've heard her name. The first time I heard this name was one night when I was on the phone with Malcolm. He was still in the office with a gloomy face. I smiled and tried to cheer him up, asking him why he was unhappy. He looked unpleasant and complained to me that the newly recruited assistant in the company was clumsy and had wet the planning proposal, causing him to lose a big business deal. I felt sorry for him working overtime so late and wanted to order a takeout for him, but Malcolm refused. "That silly girl is still accompanying me to work overtime. Although she's a bit clumsy, the food she cooks is quite delicious." I didn't care about it at that time. Malcolm and I were so familiar with each other. We grew up together and supported each other through the most difficult times. Naturally, I firmly believed that he wasn't the kind of person who would fall in love with someone else. But now, looking at the figures hugging tightly downstairs in the hospital, those details that I had deliberately ignored in the past seemed to sprout like new leaves on a branch. All the details pointed to one result. Malcolm had an affair. When I realized this, my heart ached as if it had been cut open with a knife. I took out my phone and called Malcolm. Under the streetlight, the two people hugging each other separated, and Malcolm's voice came from the receiver. I want to eat the red bean cakes at the school gate. Go and buy them for me. This was a very unreasonable request. The high school campus had already been demolished, and after several changes, the red bean cake stall that carried my childhood memories had long since disappeared. Malcolm hesitated for a moment and then smiled indulgently. Okay, I'll go and buy them for you. You're finally willing to eat something. Vanessa, I'm very happy. The figures under the streetlight left hand in hand and gradually disappeared from my sight. When Malcolm came back, he was covered in the chill of the outside. Besides the smell of red bean cakes on him, there was also another fragrance. I knew it clearly, almost as soon as I smelled that fragrance. I couldn't help but cover my mouth and retch. Malcolm anxiously stepped forward to support me, his tone flustered. What's wrong? Vanessa, are you feeling unwell? I didn't say anything, just kept crying. Malcolm wanted to call the doctor, but I stopped him and tightly grabbed his hand. Malcolm, it hurts so much. It hurts so much. Malcolm held me in his arms and comforted me in a gentle voice, just like he had done every time before. I slowly closed my eyes and calmed down in his arms, probably feeling that I had fallen asleep. Malcolm gently let go of me, carefully placed me on the bed, and then slowly left. After he left, I suddenly opened my eyes and tiptoed to the door. Just separated by a door, I heard some indescribable sounds. Malcolm was panting, his tone stern, but it didn't sound like scolding. Instead, it was flirting. You're so bold. You even dare to seduce me outside. The timid female voice was soft and gentle. Malcolm, I miss you so much. The baby misses you too. Listening to their sickeningly sweet voices, tears fell silently. I covered my mouth and held back the sobs that were about to burst out. An indescribable feeling of nausea welled up in my heart. I covered my ears and, in a self-deceiving manner, hid back in bed. I had a quarrel with Malcolm. I insisted on calling the police and having the police hold Sharon accountable. But Malcolm stopped me. He sat in front of me, his eyes full of reluctance. This was just an accident. Sharon can't drive, and she didn't mean to hit you. Sharon's parents died early, and she only has a grandmother to rely on. She's already had a hard time. Vanessa, since you're not seriously injured now, why do you have to hold her accountable? When I just woke up, he had red eyes and was full of worry that he might never see me again. But now he said that I wasn't seriously injured. I looked at him coldly. Malcolm, I've wanted to ask you this for a long time. Since you've always thought that Sharon doesn't have good work ability and can't drive, why did you keep her by your side? Malcolm's expression changed slightly, but he still patiently explained to me. She comes from a poor family. When I see her, I think of us in the past, so I take a little more care of her. Is that so? I sneered. There are so many poor people in the world. Why don't you show your love to each of them? Malcolm's face darkened. He suddenly stood up, as if my words had ignited his anger. What do you mean? Are you doubting me? I didn't expect you to be so aggressive now. Just for such a small thing, you want to drive her to death. Vanessa, you've really disappointed me. After saying these words, Malcolm coldly dropped a sentence. There are still things to deal with at the company. I'm leaving now. Then he left in a hurry. Looking at his back, I felt that he was more like running away in a hurry than being angry. The nursing auntie came in carrying a thermos flask. Seeing me crying silently, she hurried over to comfort me. Oh, why are you crying so sadly? Her warm big hand gently patted my shoulder as she tried to comfort me in a disorganized manner. Don't worry, you're still young. You and Mr. Malcolm have such a good relationship. You'll definitely have children in the future. I stood there stunned, as if struck by lightning. I stared blankly at her and asked, what children? The auntie's expression froze for a moment. She looked at me with a helpless expression. You didn't know. I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything. Don't think too much. I'm old and I said the wrong thing. I felt as if all the blood in my body rushed to my head. My vision went dark for a while, and I rushed into the doctor's office. Didn't your husband tell you? The doctor's expression was a bit strange, as if filled with pity. You had a miscarriage. The baby was already 3 months old. Coming out of the doctor's office, I was like a person who had lost their soul. I hid alone in the corridor and cried silently. I lost my parents when I was young, and it was my grandmother who raised me. 5 years ago, my grandmother also passed away. Since then, I have been all alone in this world. I have always hoped to have a happy and fulfilling family, and I also looked forward to having a child with Malcolm. I lowered my head and gently stroked my abdomen. There used to be a life growing here. She came quietly and left when I wasn't aware of it. And as the father of the child, Malcolm not only wasn't sad but even tried to hide the truth for the culprit. Mom, when will you be discharged from the hospital? I miss you so much. A childish voice sounded. I raised my head and looked outside. In the hospital corridor, Malcolm was holding the hand of a 4 or 5-year-old little boy, and across from them stood Sharon. Sharon bent down and stroked the little boy's hair. Mom will be discharged from the hospital soon. Have you been a good boy and listened to your dad? I've been very good. Dad said I'm a good boy. Malcolm, who was always serious, now had a doting smile on his face. Our Xiaoyu is smart and cute. He's the best baby in the world. Such a happy scene hurt my heart. I trembled as I took out my phone and searched in the chat box for the time when Malcolm first mentioned Sharon to me. I've been abroad for 7 years, and that little boy is only 4 years old. It's only been half a year since he first mentioned Sharon to me. That is to say, he had a child with Sharon less than half a year after they met. And at that time, my grandmother had just passed away a few months ago. I couldn't control my teeth chattering, as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over my head. No wonder he didn't fire Sharon even though she had done something wrong. No wonder he never accepted the advances of other women but would eat the food cooked by Sharon. I suddenly remembered that every time Malcolm came to Country H to see me, before returning home, he would go to the mall and buy a lot of high-end skincare products and perfumes. When I asked him, he just said they were for his business partners. Thinking about it now, I'm afraid they were for Sharon. I covered my mouth and desperately suppressed my sobs. I believe I haven't done anything wrong, whether it's to my friends or my lover. I've always been sincere and passionate. Malcolm always said that it was his luck to meet me. He loved me so much, indulged all my willfulness, considered everything for me, and remembered all my preferences. He clearly regarded me as more important than his own life. Seeing their family of 3 walking towards the stairs, my first reaction was to hide behind the door. At this moment, I didn't even have the courage to confront them. I was afraid of being disgusted. Unveiling the sweet and dreamy veil of love, life finally showed its sharp and ugly fangs in front of me without hesitation. I was afraid that every time I woke up from a dream at midnight, I would be covered in cold sweat. I walked out of the hospital in a daze. I wandered around. The early spring evening was still a bit chilly. Wearing thin clothes, I walked all the way to the small alley where Malcolm and I used to live. We grew up together. Malcolm's childhood wasn't happy. His father was an alcoholic and a domestic abuser. His mother couldn't stand it and ran away after giving birth to him. Malcolm grew up under his father's strict discipline. When I saw Malcolm, he was being punished by his father to kneel at the entrance of the alley. The little figure was thin, and his small face was swollen from being slapped. Blood dripped from his forehead. I passed by him and then turned back. Finally, I couldn't help but drag him back to my home. Why are you so stupid? If he beats you again in the future, just run and come to my home. I'll give you food to eat. My grandmother looked at his injuries with great distress, kept muttering about how cruel it was, and found medicinal wine to bandage his wounds. Later, Malcolm's father fell into a pond and drowned after drinking too much, leaving Malcolm alone at home. My grandmother felt sorry for him being alone and often invited him to have meals at our home. Now, the alley that carried my childhood memories has long been demolished and turned into a ruin, and my grandmother has been gone for many years. Even Malcolm is not the same Malcolm as he used to be. In this world, what doesn't change? Vanessa. Malcolm's voice sounded behind me, and I was pulled into a warm embrace. Why did you run out without saying a word? Do you know how worried I was about you? Malcolm held me tightly in his arms. Are you angry with me? I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said those things to you. I just think Sharon is also very pitiful. You know, she's a lot like you in the past, but you're much stronger than her. I looked at the ruins in front of me and said softly, I just miss Grandma. Do you remember what you said to her before Grandma passed away? Malcolm was taken aback for a moment, and then a sad expression appeared on his face. I remember. Vanessa, I will love you and take care of you for the rest of my life, and I will never let you get hurt. I closed my eyes wearily and showed a faint smile. So you still remember? Malcolm held my hand, his gaze firm. Vanessa, don't think too much. I've arranged everything for the wedding. The doctor said you can be discharged from the hospital the day after tomorrow. Then, we'll have another wedding. This time, no one will disturb us anymore. I settled the bill with the nursing auntie in advance and went to the doctor to go through the discharge procedures. When I was being discharged, the nurse was still puzzled. How could your husband let you go through the discharge procedures alone? During the time I was in a coma, Malcolm stayed by my side every day. He was handsome and had a good taste in dressing, and he had already become a good man praised by the little nurses. I twitched the corner of my mouth and smiled. He has other things to attend to, so I don't want to trouble him. I didn't want to see Malcolm's face that made me feel sick anymore. I entrusted a lawyer to hand over the divorce agreement to Malcolm and also handed over the recordings I had collected these days to Lawyer Zoe. I found Lawyer Zoe online. He has a very high favorable rating and specializes in divorce cases. I told Lawyer Zoe that I wanted half of the assets in Malcolm's name and the house left to me by my grandmother. Since we were going to break up, we might as well make it clear. Suddenly, the ringtone of my mobile phone's text message rang. It was a MMS from an unknown number. When I opened it, it was a photo of Malcolm sleeping soundly in bed. There were red marks all over his neck. At the corner of the viewfinder, a fair hand made a victory gesture. I didn't need to think to know that Malcolm was still with Sharon now. Even though I wanted to leave, my heart was still stabbed by this picture. Before boarding the plane, I took one last look at the city that carried the memories of the first 20-something years of my life. There were joys and sorrows, partings and reunions. It was a pity that the ending wasn't beautiful. I lost everything here. If there are no accidents, I don't want to come back again. Malcolm has been feeling uneasy these past 2 days. This feeling has been with him since Vanessa woke up, as if the thing he had been trying so hard to hide had been exposed, making him feel extremely restless. However, according to Vanessa's personality, if she knew that he had betrayed her, she would definitely make a big scene. She has a good temper and is easy to coax. As long as he apologized and admitted his mistake and pestered her, he should be able to win her back. Looking at the message sent by Sharon on his phone, Malcolm felt a bit annoyed. He refreshed the chat window several times but didn't see any message from Vanessa. It wasn't like this before. Vanessa always had so much to say, chattering non-stop. She would even share with him when she saw a beautiful leaf by the roadside. But now the chat window was silent, and the last message was still the one he sent yesterday asking her where she was. Vanessa didn't reply. He ran several blocks before finally finding her in the former small alley. Looking at her expression, Malcolm felt a sense of fear that he was about to lose her. So Malcolm advanced the wedding date. He was just waiting for Vanessa to be discharged from the hospital so that they could have the wedding. This time, he would definitely hold Vanessa's hand tightly, until he received a call from the lawyer. Malcolm was still thinking that he would definitely make Vanessa the happiest girl in the world. Mr. Malcolm. Hello. I'm the lawyer hired by Miss Vanessa. My client has entrusted me to draw up a divorce agreement. Are you available now? Malcolm had never thought that he would be separated from Vanessa. He had always clearly distinguished between love and having fun. When Vanessa was a girl, she had also read some youthful love novels. In those novels, the male lead often didn't realize his love until it was too late and eventually hurt the person he loved the most. I won't be like that, Malcolm thought to himself. He loved Vanessa, which was something he had confirmed since his first taste of adolescence and had never changed. There would never be anyone else in the world who was more important to him than Vanessa. As for Sharon, she was just something to pass the time when he was bored. How could she threaten Vanessa's position? But now, sitting opposite the lawyer and looking at Vanessa's neat signature on the divorce agreement, Malcolm had to admit that he was really a bit regretful. I don't agree. I want to see Vanessa. Lawyer Zoe sitting opposite looked at him, and a disdainful smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Mr. Malcolm, I've actually met many people like you. When you cheat, you pursue pleasure. But when it comes to divorce, you can't accept it. Actually, it's just because you're afraid of taking the consequences. People like you are generally called cowards. My client has also provided a lot of evidence of your infidelity. If you don't agree to a divorce by agreement, we will file a lawsuit for divorce. At that time, it may be even more disadvantageous for you. Malcolm sat on the sofa and quietly read all the evidence provided by Vanessa. He remained silent for a long time without saying a word. He hadn't expected that although he thought he had been very secretive, Vanessa had already known everything. Sharon called, her voice soft and coquettish as she asked him when he would come to see her. Half of Malcolm's face was hidden in the darkness, and his voice was deep. Sharon, didn't I tell you not to appear in front of Vanessa? Why did you send her a message again? When I arrived in Country H, it was a rare fine day. Ryan had dyed his hair short and silver gray, wearing sunglasses and a black suit. He leaned against a Maserati, with long limbs and handsome features. He looked like a model who had stepped out of a fashion magazine. When he saw me, he took off his sunglasses, eagerly came over and took the suitcase from my hand, and was very enthusiastic about giving me a hug. "Welcome back." Facing his enthusiasm, I politely declined and took 2 steps back to avoid it. Ryan and I are from the same school of study. He's my senior and also our tutor's favorite student. The major I studied abroad was cultural relic restoration. My tutor often praised me for being talented and a promising student. It's a pity that I let her down. After graduating, I refused the job my tutor introduced to me and resolutely returned to my home country, while Ryan stayed abroad to develop his career. Ryan's appearance really doesn't look like someone engaged in scientific research. Every time I see him, I can't help but sigh. However, I have to admit that with such a handsome face, even if I'm working in the cultural relic restoration room, I don't feel bored. This time I returned to country H. On the one hand, I couldn't stay in my home country anymore, and on the other hand, because Ryan had recently taken over a batch of severely damaged cultural relics and was so busy that he couldn't handle it at all. In order to relieve the work pressure, he wanted to recruit a professional with excellent technical skills. After thinking it over, he believed that I was the most suitable candidate. When I received the invitation, I was busy preparing for the wedding and politely declined Ryan's invitation. But later, since I had nowhere else to go, I thought of Ryan again. I originally thought that even if the other party had already found an assistant, it didn't matter. I just needed an excuse to escape. But Ryan was very happy and warmly welcomed my joining. I had no intention of mentioning what I had experienced after returning to my home country. And Ryan was also very tactful and didn't ask, why did I suddenly go abroad alone when I should have been preparing for the wedding? I thought that in my state, I wasn't suitable for work. Although I agreed to Ryan's invitation, more than anything, I just took this opportunity to relax. But after throwing myself into the work, I realized that the magic medicine for healing a broken heart is not only time but also work. Cultural relic restoration is a very boring and arduous job. It requires not only great care but also complete concentration. When I devoted myself to the work, I didn't have the time or the mood to think about Malcolm anymore. I was so busy that I lost track of time. It was lawyer Zoe who took the initiative to contact me, saying that he had found some evidence and had officially sued Sharon for intentional injury and hit and run. Only then did I remember that before going abroad, I had fully entrusted lawyer Zoe to handle my case. And now there was finally some news. It seems that Mr. Malcolm has given up on Sharon. Lawyer Zoe briefly mentioned a few things to me on the other end of the phone. After reading the evidence you sent me, Mr. Malcolm was very angry and had a quarrel with Sharon. Later, he just ignored her. With Sharon's family background, without Malcolm's mediation, it was certain that she would go to jail. I didn't care about the entanglement between Malcolm and Sharon and hung up the phone in a hurry. Teacher, I'd like to propose a toast to you. Thank you for taking care of me all these years. And I also want to apologize. I'm sorry, I was too willful and let you down. At the class reunion, I raised my glass to toast my teacher. When I was in university, Malcolm's career hadn't taken off yet, and we were both very short of money. I studied and worked abroad at the same time. I filled up all my spare time. I worked part-time at a convenience store at night and at a fast food restaurant on mornings when I didn't have classes. I wished I could use the 24 hours of a day as 48 hours. I was so busy running around day and night. After my teacher learned about my situation, she generously offered that she had a small apartment that I could live in temporarily and only charged me a very low rent per month. In addition, she invited me to have meals at her home every now and then. I have always been very grateful for my teacher's care. It wasn't until Malcolm's studio started to do well and we gradually had more money that he took on my expenses, and my life became a little easier. Even so, I didn't rely entirely on Malcolm. I still did part-time jobs and covered part of my living expenses myself. It doesn't matter if you made a wrong choice. What's important is to stop the loss in time. My teacher looked at me with a smile. We raised our glasses to celebrate, wishing for a long-lasting career and a happy life. No one asked me what I had experienced after returning to my home country or why I came back to country H in such a sorry state. But everyone welcomed me and comforted me in their own way. After the party ended, Ryan took the initiative to take on the task of sending me back. The southern hemisphere had already entered winter. The biting cold wind blew, making my face ache. Ryan lowered his head, untied his scarf, and tied it around my neck. His fingers were fair and slender, and they brought a touch of warmth when they brushed against my chin. Will you go back? Ryan suddenly asked me. I hesitated for a long time and then shook my head. I will go back to my home country, but I won't go to that city again. Ryan's long eyelashes blinked, and his eyes curved into a smile. My hometown is also very beautiful. If there's a chance, I'll take you there to have fun. The hint in these words was so obvious that for a moment, I didn't even know how to respond and could only lower my head and remain silent. Vanessa, I've finally found you. Did you abandon me for this pretty boy? A familiar voice sounded. I looked up and saw Malcolm standing under a streetlight not far away, looking at me with a sad expression. Stop being angry. Okay, I'm here to take you home. I stood there stunned. I hadn't expected Malcolm to come looking for me, since he was already with Sharon and even had a child. I left to let them be together. He should be happy. Why did he come looking for me? I instinctively took a step back. Ryan stepped forward and blocked me behind him. He looked at Malcolm with a vigilant and hostile gaze. Who are you? I'm Vanessa's husband. Who are you? Ryan raised his eyebrows and said in a disdainful tone. Didn't you say it? I'm the pretty boy that Vanessa keeps. Hearing these words, my originally nervous mood instantly relaxed, and I couldn't help but laugh out loud. Seeing my smile, Ryan relaxed a little. He leaned slightly closer to me and whispered in my ear. Did the scumbag come looking for trouble? Do you want me to find some brothers to teach him a lesson? I promise it will be quick and decisive. I looked at Ryan in surprise. I didn't expect him to have such a carefree side. Malcolm's face looked ugly. He reached out his hand to me. Vanessa, I don't believe you can let go of me. I've broken off contact with Sharon. Come back. I promise I'll never let you be wronged again. His tone was plaintive, and his eyes were slightly red, as if he was very sad. I couldn't understand what Malcolm was up to now. He had a beautiful woman by his side and a child to bring him joy, and he already had an enviable happy family. But he left all that behind and came looking for me. I looked at him coldly. Mr. Malcolm, I think we have nothing to talk about. My lawyer should have already communicated the specific matters to you. If you have any opinions, you can talk to my lawyer. We have nothing more to talk about. Hearing my cold words, Malcolm was taken aback for a moment. He disregarded everything and tried to grab my hand, but was stopped by Ryan. Vanessa, how could you be so heartless as to abandon me? We agreed to be together for a lifetime, and I promised Grandma that I would take care of you. He actually had the nerve to mention Grandma. I was so angry with him that a surge of nameless anger welled up in me, and I could hardly resist the urge to rush over and slap him twice. And I actually did just that. Malcolm, how dare you mention Grandma? If I had known you were such a person, I shouldn't have bothered with you in the first place. Malcolm's face turned pale instantly. He stared at me blankly, seemingly not expecting that I hated him so much. I'm sorry, Vanessa. I never meant to betray you. I just thought she was pitiful, and she was a lot like you in the past. When you were abroad, you worked so hard to save money, and I couldn't help you. At that time, seeing Sharon having to work while taking care of her grandmother, I thought of you, so I couldn't help but take a little more care of her. Besides, she's different from you. She's not as strong as you and relies on me and cares about me wholeheartedly. I was already so tired from building my career, and I really needed someone to take care of me. Listening to his words, I just felt ridiculous, and I even laughed at myself for being so blind as to fall in love with such a man. Are you saying that you chose to have an affair with Sharon to compensate for who I used to be? Malcolm, you really make me sick. Seeing the look of disgust on my face, Malcolm was completely flustered. His eyes were red, and he urgently leaned closer to me, trying to grab my hand. I'm sorry, Vanessa. I was stupid. I'm a jerk. I couldn't resist the temptation, but I really love you. Vanessa, please give me a chance to make it up to you. There were dark circles under his eyes, and his clothes were messy. He looked like a stray dog abandoned by its owner, pitifully begging me to give him another chance. Malcolm, not all mistakes can be forgiven. Just thinking that perhaps he had already been with Sharon when he swore to Grandma made me grit my teeth with hatred. Before Grandma passed away, you held her hand and swore to her that you would never let me be wronged in this life. But just a few months after Grandma died, you were already with Sharon, and you even had a child. Why should I forgive you? Malcolm, just leave. I never want to see you again. Facing my accusations, Malcolm couldn't say a word and left in a daze. It was only when a warm touch pressed against my cheek that I came back to my senses. Come on, don't be sad. It's not worth crying over a scumbag. Ryan handed me a wet wipe to wipe away my tears. Looking into his gentle eyes, The emotions that I had been deliberately suppressing finally couldn't be held back anymore. I buried my head in his arms and cried my heart out. I didn't see Malcolm for a long time. Later, it was lawyer Zoe who took the initiative to contact me. She brought me two pieces of good news. First, Sharon had finally been imprisoned. I lost a child because of the car accident, and my body had also suffered great damage. The court sentenced Sharon to 5 years in prison. Second, Malcolm had finally agreed to the divorce. He left all the assets in his name to me and left the house empty-handed. Facing this result, lawyer Zoe's reaction was very cold. She just sneered. Humph. Acting. I knew what she meant. Wasn't he having a great time when he cheated? Now that he's been found out, he's pretending to be deeply in love, as if he's head over heels for me. But if he really loved me, how could he have cheated in the first place? Before going to prison, Sharon asked to meet me. I had seen Sharon many times, but we had never officially met. Coincidentally, a museum in my home country recently invited me to return for cultural relic restoration work, and I happily agreed. This time, though, I had a little tail tagging along. Ryan was like a very qualified luggage carrier, pulling my suitcase the whole time and staying close to me as we returned to the country together. I was really not used to his flattering appearance. Seeing that both Ryan and I were back, the museum director couldn't stop smiling. He probably didn't expect that this kind of thing could come with a buy one, get one free deal. I met Sharon on a rainy day. Ryan accompanied me to the prison. This was the first time I saw Sharon face to face. She did have the charm to make people's hearts flutter, even in a prison uniform that had been washed until it turned white. Her pitiful and innocent appearance couldn't be hidden. However, the venom in her eyes spoiled her beauty. If I had known, I should have hit you harder and killed you directly. Sharon clearly had no intention of repenting. I've always been confused about why she hated me so much. Why did you come back? Isn't it better to stay abroad? If it weren't for you, I would have already been living a happy life with Malcolm. I gave birth to his child, and he accompanied me every day. We were so happy. It's all your fault. If it weren't for you, how could I have ended up like this? I looked at her strangely. Didn't you want to end up like this yourself? You deliberately put on a show in front of me several times and deliberately created intimate interactions with Malcolm. Didn't you just want to force me to divorce? How could it be such a coincidence that every time she was being intimate with Malcolm, I happened to see it? Later, I finally figured it out. She did it on purpose. She knew that if she drove into me, I would definitely be suspicious and start paying attention to Malcolm's every move. Malcolm had always been a careful person. Otherwise, I wouldn't have failed to notice anything unusual about him for a whole year after I returned to the country. With the trust one had in Malcolm, even if he didn't come home at night, I would just feel sorry for how hard he was working, rather than suspecting that he was having an affair with another woman. But when the car will hit me, if I didn't start suspecting then, I would have been too naive. I lost. But I didn't lose to you. I lost to time. If I had met Malcolm earlier than you, Sharon mumbled, looking almost crazy. I interrupted her unceremoniously. Who wants to compete with you over a man? Besides, even if you had met him earlier than me, could you guarantee that he wouldn't fall in love with someone else? A scumbag like him can fall in love with you, and he can also fall in love with someone else. What's so precious about the so-called true heart of a rotten person? The work at the museum was very busy. Ryan and I hardly had any rest and threw ourselves into the busy cultural relic restoration work. I rarely thought about Malcolm anymore, but occasionally I would still hear about his whereabouts from my former classmates. I heard that Malcolm had made several financial decisions in a row, causing his company to suffer heavy losses and great damage. And because he gave all the cash flow to me, the company's capital chain was in short supply, and it was on the verge of bankruptcy. But all these things had nothing to do with me. What bothered me was something else. Through the frequent contact during this period, I increasingly realized that perhaps Ryan's feelings for me were not ordinary. When I was in a relationship with Malcolm before, I didn't feel it. But this time when I returned to Country H, Ryan was clearly unusually enthusiastic towards me. Having been in a relationship with Malcolm for so long, I'm not that insensitive. Naturally, I could feel the ambiguous affection Ryan had for me. A hand gently stroked my face, and Malcolm's voice was filled with helplessness. The spring breeze turned the riverbank green again, and the willows by the lake sprouted new buds. Ryan's and my work finally came to a temporary end. Ryan took the initiative to invite me to go on a spring outing. After thinking it over, I agreed. We walked aimlessly all the way, Along the stone steps, we climbed to the top of the mountain. Among the green tiles and red walls, a temple was right in front of us. Do you want to go up and pray? I pointed at the temple. It's a coincidence that we came across it. Ryan had a serious expression. He looked down at his phone for a long time, and his handsome brows furrowed. We took the wrong path. Can we change to another mountain and climb it again? I was taken aback. It was rare to see him looking so serious. What's wrong? Ryan showed me the screen of his phone. Online. It says that if you go to this temple, you'll be single for 3 years. I was amused by his serious superstitious look and grabbed his hand to pull him forward. But it also says online that this temple exchanges love luck for wealth luck. Don't you want to get rich? Ryan looked down at the hand that I was holding, and his ears turned red secretly. Well, it's not impossible. 3 years is just 3 years. It's not like I can't wait. I'm the best at waiting.